Good morning, everybody, and warm welcome to this activity update. This isn't a formal council meeting, but it is an opportunity to get an update on everything that's been happening around our various departments of council, and also to get an update on what's coming up. Something that's really helpful for us in the community. Just thank you to staff for all of the reports that we're going to be looking at today. We've got an apology from Deputy Mayor Halilele, and also just note that Councillor Cowles is joining us online. So otherwise we'll get into things. So welcome to members of the public who may be watching the live stream, members of the media, councillors and officers of council. First up, we've got the Heritage Environment and Regulatory Group, and I'll hand over to Mr. Cook.
Thank you very much. Yes, pleased to be able to present the final update. Yes, that one. Very pleased to present the activity update report for the group for the end of the year. Happy to take it as read, but I would just like to particularly draw attention to the building consent reform that has been announced, and that's covered at the end of the report, but maybe we can work our way through it with any questions and then just cover that off at the end.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll get into it. So we just work our way through. So is there anything on the first couple of pages? Anything on any of those different updates in there? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, look, three questions. Page 11, just a reference to the coastal landfill remediation project, and the fact that we may be liable for this $3.5 million levy. We've asked for a waiver. And at the moment, or when this report was written, nothing had been resolved. So is there any update on that for the end of the year? Are we likely to get a Christmas present, i.e. the $3.5 million written off? And just two questions on page 13. What were the key learnings of the Civil Defence Readiness and Resilience exercise? And with regard to the territorial audit, good to see that there was only one corrective action needed, but what were the 5 strong recommendations and 8 recommendations, please?
Thank you. We'll deal with the big one first, which is the $3.5 million worth of levy. That has been invoiced, which is why it is strictly a liability to us. It sits on our books at the moment. However, the process is, or the system has been created to refund the levy. It's just the internal processes that MFE need to design in order to refund the levy or credit the levy. So they've agreed that we just put the invoices in dispute whilst they sort out their internal processes. They haven't given us a time frame for that resolution, but I did follow up last week with them to see where they've got to, in the hope that that could be expedited. In terms of the civil defence learnings, we haven't completed the debrief yet. However, it was a very successful exercise where we were able to give some new people some experience, so they were prepared for future events. One thing that always sort of raises my awareness with these events is the actual number of people we need to respond. There was approximately 50 people involved, and that is okay for a couple of hour exercise. But when you're potentially standing up 3 shifts to cover 24 hours, working multiple days, then you very quickly burn through a number of people, so to speak. So we do need to make sure that we've got plenty of people trained up in the various function activities within the council and external parties to make sure that we are able to do that. As it was based on AF8 fault. And that was designed to reflect just the variations across the districts as to how they would be affected. And so when Civil Defence Emergency Management Otago conducted the exercise in Queenstown, there was slightly different injects compared to how they handled it with us. So all in all, it was a very successful exercise. People got a lot out of it, and it ran very well. In terms of the MB Territorial Authority audit, the corrective action was unfortunate in that the reference to the section of the legislation didn't go to the final subsection. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but say, for example, it should have been section 1132. We had it as 113 subsection 2. It maybe should have been section 113 subsection 2C. And that was the corrective action. So it was really getting down to the fine splitting of the points. In terms of the others, I don't have those in front of me, I'm afraid, but I can email you those if you wish to read that or read the report.
I'll be happy to, but I mean, clearly, if there are matters of concern or interest, then it would be useful for all of us to know. But I mean, if they're relatively minor things, that I'll matter of your judgment to be exercised, I would think.
Thank you. On the basis that the major corrective action was to add a further subsection to the reference point, the others were relatively minor, which is why I haven't committed them to memory.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Councillor McCain.
Yeah, thank you for that, Roger. Just as you said in the last paragraph with the building consents, where does that going to leave us, especially in particular with the remote inspections? Does it leave the council liable more so, or how's it going to work and who's going to pay for it?
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that. That's one of the very significant concerns around the potential reforms as to where the liability will end up. This is very early work that's been signalled by the Minister for Construction and the Prime Minister. You may have seen it in the media. This is in the report. It covers briefly what they're thinking, which is around various consolidations of BCAs, self-certification even from builders, and the requirement to do more virtual inspections. We already do some virtual inspections, but we use those tactically to cover inspections in remote parts of the district, perhaps if we haven't got anybody going there anyway, or if there is something that a builder needs inspecting urgently, and when we can't get there, then we'll do a remote inspection. So it's currently used by most BCAs, including ours, as a tactical tool. And we don't believe that it's right to make them mandated because it's horses for courses. The liability issue has always been a question when they've looked at building system reforms as to where the liability will sit. I know the government is quite keen on looking at external insurance, but whether the external insurance market will come to the party to do that is a very different matter. Certainly, as the proposals shape up, we will be coming to council with a briefing in early 2025 with what they're proposing and seeking your feedback and making a fairly substantial submission on the proposals.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to page 8 of the report, I see that 73% of resource consents have been issued in the statutory timeframe. The 25% that we're obviously trying to catch up, are they in specific areas, or is it simply just a logistical matter?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. We're still trying to get to the bottom of it because it appears that it's picking up the section 223, 224 certifications, which come at the end of a subdivision consent process. So I think they've actually been picked up and reflect most of that 25%. So when we looked at the actual consents issued in September, where it showed up, we're well over 90%. So I think it's just a blip in the way it's recording those additional things that get loaded into the system and how they're counted. But we're pretty confident the actual consent issuing is well over 90%.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Any other questions? No, thank you very much for that update. So we now move on to the information technology, information systems and digital projects update. Welcome, Teresa and team. You get set up and then we'll let you introduce the update if you wish to. Yep. Do you want to introduce anything there?
Just I'd take it as read. Any questions?
Okay. Nice and easy, like OT should be. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, I've got one question and it relates to both of the projects. Seems to be quite significant. This is the digitisation of the property records and the SharePoint Hive. In each case, there's information here where it says budget, approved budget 303,000 over financial year 25, spent at 883. A decision has been made to charge internal costs to digital projects. This is good financial practice, but puts the budget at risk as these internal resources were not included in the original budget request. In theory, what does that mean? And in dollar terms, what are the implications in both cases, please?
So internal charging is the resources that are internal to the organisation. So rather than contractors and money out the door, so to speak. And so what that means is if on the digitisation project, we have one resource that's internally working on it full time, those costs previously were not budgeted for. And so we would then have the cost of 40 hours per week times, for 48 weeks per year. That would then be charged to the project.
You mean that? You mean that's what's now happening, but wasn't?
Correct.
So how was that money being allocated or spent? Or was it being spent? It must have been being spent.
It means that when we budgeted the project, we didn't budget for those internal resources. So we would have, for the digitisation project, for instance, we are using an external vendor called Canon. And we had expected that and we knew those vendor costs were coming. So we budgeted those external costs or costs out the door. But now we will be having internal resource costs charged.
So essentially, is it a bit like overheads? Essentially, you are reallocating figures that are going, right, yeah, that's fine. So there's no additional cost implication, yeah.
That's correct. It's basically just being allocated into a different bucket. It has been budgeted for and allowed for. It's just where it's going to appear in the accounts is different.
Thank you.
So I guess the question, supplementary question for me would be, has it been a case of in the past that we would approve a budget that was say $300,000, but actually the real cost of doing that particular project may have been $350,000. It's that. So there'll be more transparency around those costs that have been hidden up to now.
It's actually really good practice to do your internal costs because it accurately captures the full cost of a project. So yeah, that's the decision has been made and it's a good sound financial practice to do that.
Yep.
Just we have to transition across.
Yeah. No, that's
and the impact might mean that you may see that our budget that we cannot meet budget, but there will be a defendable reason why that is the case. So at least it's explainable, defendable, but just to be aware that this may happen.
So it's not costing more, but we're seeing where the costs actually do fall.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Everyone's looking happy. Okay. Nice and easy for you this morning. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to the People and Transformation Group updates and hand over to Mrs. Bailey.
Good morning, and thank you. As Roger said earlier, final council activity update report for the year, and also the final one in the current layout or structure that our organisational design represents now. While Chloe's getting herself sorted, I would just like to make one comment in here that Chloe and I had the privilege of going to a Public Libraries New Zealand meeting of the South Lib group in Balclutha recently, and we weren't quite sure what we were going to find there, but it was a really supportive group in terms of some of the changes that we're making here to our library functions, and particularly from the Public Libraries New Zealand Executive Director, I think his title is. So they're going to have a bit of input with our staff as well, and highlighted that a lot of the things we're doing are simply good, if not best practice throughout the country to date. So thought I would share that with you all, give you a bit of comfort, and I will take the report as read and hand to Chloe for any specific questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Chloe, do you have any comments or just go straight to questions? Sorry, your microphone's not on. Yep. Try again. There.
Fantastic. No, happy to take it as read. I think I would just draw attention to the $50,000 grant that the Friends of the Forester have successfully been granted from the Stout Trust, which is fantastic news. And we're just in the final stages of concluding tender negotiations for the Forester Gallery project. So I look forward to having some updates on that as soon as we can share those.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Chloe, if I may, I sort of know the answer, but I'd like to ask the question for the benefit of anyone who's, I've seen comments, well, we've all seen comments about irresponsible spending of council. And one of the projects mentioned, of course, is the extensions to the art gallery. Can you explain to me today that the funding for that is coming from other sources other than ratepayers?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Thompson. And yes, the capital costs of extending the Forester Gallery, as agreed, I believe it was in December 2019, Council approved the project provided external funding could be secured, and to date we have secured over $7 million in external funds towards the project. And I don't want to breach any tender negotiations, but I think I'm allowed to say that we're within budget with the funds that we've raised. We'll be continuing to actively fundraise with the Friends for fit-out costs and ongoing project costs, but I'm happy to say to this group that yes, we have the external funds we need to proceed.
Thank you.
And just for clarity, there were some ratepayer funds, but it was depreciation funding which would have been spent on maintaining the building, which the upgrade is meaning that work doesn't need to happen. Is that right?
I would probably miss my former colleague, Mr. Rhodes, on a question like that. But yes, there are some council contributions towards it in terms of the capital cost of the extension that is being met by external funds.
Yeah. So no, I think it's fantastic just how much has been raised externally, and I think if we could do all projects with that level of external funding, we would be able to do a heck of a lot more. But well done, and I just acknowledge, Chloe, your work on that, because it has been absolutely superlative. So well done. Just have a wee break while Councillor Hopkins answers his phone. Thank you. Nice music. Councillor Linwood.
Thank you. Chloe, I was just wondering if we've got any data on the percentage of visitors to the museum and art gallery who are international tourists as opposed to locals. You might not know the answer now, but I am curious to know.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Linwood. We participate in the annual Museums Aotearoa survey, which is a snapshot survey, which we do once a year. So it just captures 1 week of visitation, and it typically falls in March. And the reason they choose that is essentially it's the tourism shoulder season. So it should, in theory, based on the nationwide data, give us a bit of a snapshot of what it would average out over the year. You expect in summer the percentage falls more towards the international tourists, and over the winter months more towards towards the local audience. I believe in the last council activity update, I did present those Museum Aotearoa figures. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say it sits around 30% of visitation, but that is just at the top of the head figure, and I'm happy to supply what we've actually got from the Museums Aotearoa survey with the caveat that it is 1 week of survey.
Thank you. Just a quick question from me. We've got the rates rebates amounts there, and great to see that last financial year we had $624,000 come in from the government to offset the rates for those who qualified for that rebate. The amount now is up to $790. Do we have any idea of how many people, how many ratepayers actually do qualify for the payment, or is it just really those who choose to apply? That's the ones we see. So, Mr. Hope.
Oh, yeah, I'll go at this one. Yeah, we've previously been able to make a rough estimate, just really based on income figures, but we can't match the income figures against the rating database to actually get a precise number. So we tend to sort of overcompensate a bit and send out information to everyone that we think might be potentially eligible. And then, yeah, it really is up to them to whether they apply or not. Of course, we're very actively engaged with people, that anyone that has arrears or we start talking to them about, particularly arrears on their rate accounts, we will suggest that they look at the rates rebate scheme, supply them information. So we try and make it as broad as possible. But no, we don't have a precise number of who essentially who's missing out. It would be good if we could, because we'd target them for some further publicity.
Yeah, we don't get much for free from the government, but this is a good program, and we certainly want to make sure everyone who can access it does so. Thank you for that. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, a couple of questions. Page 23, this reference at the bottom of the page to dog registrations and re-registrations for 36 online, doing so online. And the comment is the application appears seamless for the customer, but it is very manual. It is a very manual and time-consuming process for the CLT. I'm just curious, if it's online, why is it manual and time-consuming, and what's being done to overcome that? I have some other questions on other pages, but maybe you can answer that one first.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can't answer why it is so manual in the background. It is good that we've improved it so the customer feels like it's a more seamless process, but it is one of those systems that we're trying to automate by default. So at the moment, we're through transformation looking at putting a couple of 100 forms being fully online and automated where possible. And this is one that we'd be working on in that process. Because while we do want it to be quicker for the customer, we also want it to be an easy and frictionless process for our staff so that it can be quicker and achieve efficiencies.
Yeah, two others, just on page 28, looking at the numbers in the Opera House for July 2024 to November, and same months for 2023. And the note at the bottom is the higher community numbers for 2023 are due to the two large productions. But community numbers are only slightly higher, and the commercial numbers this year are much higher. So is that increase from 7038 or 7038, or sorry, is it 7345 as in November 23 as against 7038? Is that all just because of School of Rock and that bloody woman?
Through the chair, yes, that is my understanding, that discrepancy is due to that, because otherwise you'll see the numbers for the Opera House have trended up this year. So we did just want to make that note that was really driven, those figures in the community space last year by those two productions.
Yeah, I'm thinking, wouldn't they have been commercial? Because people paid to go to those shows, and that the difference between this year's numbers commercially are much higher. So it doesn't quite tell you. Anyway, never mind. On page 30, the other thing, Chloe, I do apologise, but I remain concerned that the numbers at the gallery don't appear to be picking up as we might hope. I look at the September and October attendance figures for this year, and they're substantially lower than 2023. So are you concerned? And if so, what are you doing?
Through the chair, I'm not concerned about those September and October numbers. The reason that they are lower is that last year, the Friends of the Forester Gallery got a grant from the Lion Foundation of $10,000 to bus in students from across the district to the Burns Memorial exhibition, which was absolutely fabulous, but not a feat they can repeat every year, especially as the Friends have been focused on fundraising for the extension to the gallery building. And also our team felt with all the things happening at the moment around transformation that they actually couldn't in good conscience accept that many school visits through as educator Liz was transitioning from one team to another at this time. In terms of what we are doing to drive further visitor numbers, obviously we want as many people using our gallery and museum and archive as possible. And we are working with Yvonne Avis, who is now in the strategic communications and engagement team on marketing plans for both facilities. Our first toe in the water for that was on Friday night with the Light Up the Christmas Tree event and keeping the gallery open a little longer to encourage people to visit and people who may not otherwise get in during our usual hours. And we're looking at a campaign for the museum around the Colossal Squid exhibition coming from Te Papa. So I hope those things will drive more visitors through our doors, and we're always open to any other suggestions people have in that space.
Thank you. Any other questions for this section? So thank you very much again, and yeah, we'll look forward to hearing that update on the Forester Gallery construction side of things. So all the best for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what have we got next? Assets Group update. Are we ready to start that one, Mr. Hope? Okay, we've just got to get the right people in the room. So Councillor Hopkins, if you could just play that phone music again, that would be quite helpful.
So if you ring me, I'll...
Oh. We won't worry about it for the moment. Just welcome to the chamber, the various officers who are going to be able to speak to us on the matters in the Assets Group update. So handing to who to start? Mr. Hope, thank you.
Oh, I think we'll start with Mr. Rendell.
Okay, so Josh, just when you're ready to go, thank you.
Sorry, apologies. Given it's probably the last Assets Group meeting, I thought I'd bring everyone along so you can interrogate them one last time. Happy to take the report as read and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Right, no questions? Councillor McCone.
I have several. Josh, the A2 maintenance on page 34 is saying that we've received 175 to be split between the two districts. Is that a concern considering the maintenance of those tracks?
Sorry, I'm not 100% sure that I got your question. Oh, Lindsay's online, sorry.
Yeah. So, Lindsay Hyde's now joined us online. So, Lindsay, are you able to, did you hear the question? You're muted. Okay, you unmuted and then you muted again. There we go. Can you hear me now?
No, if someone could repeat that, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Just on page 34, you mentioned, or the report mentions that MBI has funded $175,000 for the Alps Ocean. Is that going to be enough to cover off the maintenance costs of what we're up against? And is that a concern with that amount of funding?
We're not hearing anything, Lindsay. I think There's a technical issue, whatever's happening. Essentially, both councils put money in to also help with this, assist with maintenance. And, I'm not 100% sure how much that is, but, Mr. Rendell, could you fill in that gap? Mr. Vandersbeek.
I can't fill in the current value that council puts towards maintenance. However, I do believe this funding from MB is an additional contribution. They've changed their funding structure on what they allocate their funds for, and this is now a maintenance top up essentially that we didn't have previously.
So just to agree that there's a plus rather than,
Okay. Excuse me, any other? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, just looking at that very first page that Councillor McCone has focused on. I'm just congratulations, by the way, on the new water play project at the public gardens. It's fantastic. It was great watching kids there enjoying it yesterday. But on that same page, there's a reference to the 7 moorings in the harbour owned by us. ORC's accepted 2 of them. The report says the remaining 5 will be relinquished and may require removal. Is that going to be at our expense?
Potentially, yes, but we're not sure of the costings yet. My understanding is that it might be easy, but as the tide goes out, they'll be easily accessed to remove.
Thank you. I've got a couple of other questions. Can somebody just, I'm trying to find it, I think it's on page 39, I stand to be corrected, but the erosion in the gardens, I'm sorry, it's on page 35. The Oamaru Public Gardens Creek Bank has had further erosion, necessitating additional urgent work. Can somebody give us more information about that, please? And the same with relation to the creek and the detrimental effects and on the sequoia there. And the other one is my other question related to the report on page 37 regarding the stock effluent proposed disposal. There's been some debate about this. It says that our officers are working with the Otago Regional Council on a solution with responsibility to be assumed by ORC in the long term. So what's the current situation, and can people hold us to account now, or can we legitimately say as of today, this is a regional council matter, and if there's any problems with this facility, it sits with them, not with us?
I can answer the third question regarding the stock effluent sites, and if we can resolve the technical difficulties for Lindsay for the other 2 questions. In regards to the stock effluent sites, they're currently closed. So essentially, this is an asset that is on NZTA property that protects NZTA roads that were installed by Otago Regional Council that historically Waitaki District Council took responsibility for the operations of, purely because we were the people who were local and best placed to do it. We are not in a position now where we're able to take the effluent from those sites to any of the treatment plants within the district, and the quotes that we had to take it outside of the district were well and truly outside of budget, and we weren't in a position where we thought that it was reasonable that we would be paying for effluent removal from sites that were not ours to protect an asset that is not ours. So we've been trying to work with Otago Regional Council on options for them to take over the effluent sites. Just to say as well that we didn't just close them willy-nilly. There was some consideration as to where other potential sites might be. But yes, that's the current situation. They're closed at the moment. We're working with the Otago Regional Council to reopen them. We're looking at getting a funding set up occurring with the Otago Regional Council providing us some funding to be able to carry us over until the new year when Otago Regional Council might take them over.
So just to clarify, are there any facilities for stock effluent disposal anywhere within the Waitaki districts, Bellawick at the moment, or are all of those sites closed because of the cost issues you've identified?
There are no open stock effluent sites within the Waitaki district at this time.
Thank you, councillor Ryan.
Thank you. From walking up at the Cape, it appears that the rabbit control work has been reasonably effective. Is there any more work to do in that space? And is there any, I guess, do we have any strategies for, I guess, keeping numbers under control going forward?
So, Lindsay, did you hear that?
I did. I do apologise for the technical issues I had. I had a whole heap of feedback going on, so I was hearing a lot of questions being repeated the same again and again. To answer Councillor Ryan's question, yes, we've done what we can at the moment. Haven't had too much feedback from ORC as to whether the numbers are under the requirements, but from information received from within the team, I'm pretty comfortable that we have achieved that. We will need to continue to monitor the site, and we'll instigate any sort of residual sort of night shooting when we require. So we'll just have to actively keep an eye on that area. So if the public keep on reporting stuff back to us, unless we can see if there's any sort of hotspots, but we'll just continue to monitor for presence and signs around the site anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor McCone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just further to Councillor Hopkins' questions about the stock effluent disposal sites, it was raised at the Regional Transport Committee 2 weeks ago. In actual fact, there are none of those sites in Southland. So Otago is inheriting all the effluent that is carted north. And it's not only our sites, but private sites at the meat companies have also closed and saying that their systems cannot. So it's being worked on as quite a regional problem.
Thank you, Councillor McCone.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. As far as the toilets goes, the vandalism thing is just an ongoing thing around the world. It's a concern, but it's a shame really for what we're doing. The other question I have regarding that is in Meraki, we're still sticking to what we decided and didn't go any further. I presume that's still carrying on for those toilets. Question one.
Yeah, just in relation to those questions on toilets, yes, vandalism is an ongoing issue, and really all I'm just doing is reporting it. We kind of go up and down with vandalism. We'll continue to monitor, and if we need to adjust security arrangements, and we'll need to look at that in the future. In regards to the Meraki toilet facility, yes, things are progressing with that. I believe that the tender is out for the installation of that toilet facility. I can't remember the timeframes for that for being closed, but we are aiming to make sure that that is built and complete to budget and within the MIMBY timeframes that are required.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, just going back to the Oma Republic Gardens Creek bank with the erosion south of the top 10 and also the other damage later on that you're saying is trying to resolve with as little detrimental effect on the large sequoia tree as possible. How substantial is this erosion? And clearly it's an unbudgeted expense, but what's it going to cost to actually remediate or take steps to prevent further erosion?
Probably 2 points to the question. I'll let Josh respond to the erosion comment because he's been involved in some discussions while I've been on holiday. But in relation to the sequoia, I understand that the drains have been unblocked. It's probably been quite some time since we've done any sort of drain work or drain clearing in that area. So it's not unsurprising that tree roots have got in and created that blockage. So we'll just need to instigate a monitoring an inspection program and through there and just put a camera through it just to make sure, hey, look, we're not going to have these sort of issues going ahead. We did have a reasonable rain event and it was probably only a matter of time before that incident happened, but we have learnt that we did have an inspection plate in that area which we weren't aware of, so there's been some learnings as a result of that flooding in that area.
With respect to the erosion along the Omri Creek, we do have a section there where recent weather events have severely scoured sections of the bank, which has limited some of the camping spots available at the top 10, whichever it is there. We're currently getting quotes from contractors to be able to rectify that. So I'd probably rather not say the value in a public arena if we can. Just, I don't want to undermine our position as far as the competitive pricing processes. Yep. But we will also need to be working with the Otago Regional Council to get a permit to be able to undertake that work within the creek.
Thank you. And back to Councillor McCain.
Just one further question. Under your emergency funding for roading, there's a couple of alarm bells ring there. It seems if they're going to make it tougher, which means that the council itself, the way I read it, will be further out of pocket for longer to get reinstated. But the one that really concerns me is reinstatement will be scrutinised a lot more than it currently is, particularly when working on uneconomic parts of the road network. What is classed as uneconomic parts of the road network? And the base I'm coming from is there might be 3 people who live down that road, but it's a very economic part of their business.
Good question. So when we're saying that they're going to be spending a lot more time discerning what works are being undertaken, they're essentially going to be auditing the work sites afterwards to make sure that when we're actually undertaking work that we're not improving roads, we're just taking them back to the condition that they were in prior to the weather event. And when we are talking about uneconomic parts of the network, we are talking about primarily access roads, because there is concern that some councils out there may potentially be spending large sums of money restoring access roads to conditions that are far better than potentially they need to be an access road. We have recently had an audit undertaken from NZTA for some of the emergency works that we have conducted. There were no issues at all. It's just raising it that there will be some more scrutiny on the particular activity.
Thank you. Just a question from me on the pavement rehabilitation program for roading. Good to see that 4 sites have been approved by NZTA, Alma Road, Clyde Street, Fuchsia Creek Road, and Horse Range Road. How does that process work? Do we put forward a larger group of roads as suggestions, or how do we select the roads?
I can cover it off from a high level perspective, but essentially significant amount of testing is undertaken on the road pavements. We're looking at the volumes on the road, the strength of the pavement. There's quite a few factors that go into an equation that essentially dictates whether we need to improve the pavement or undertake a dig out or more isolated repairs. A pavement rehabilitation, essentially, you're looking at a very, very long length of road that needs to be rebuilt, as opposed to smaller sections. So it comes down to a cost benefit factor on whether it's more cost effective to be able to just do a dig out or a stabilisation as opposed to a full length pavement rehabilitation. So it comes down to what the forecast expenditure is on that road over the next period of time, and then whether it's more cost effective to do a rehabilitation as opposed to enhanced maintenance activities. So they look at the cost benefit of that, they look at the projected costs, and then say, yes, those ones are approved for a pavement rehabilitation, or those ones are not yet, but we're approving enhanced maintenance on the road. So there's quite a process to go through. Collates significant amounts of data based on the road, both maintenance spend as well as forecast maintenance spend. And yeah, that's how the list is essentially compiled and prioritised, because obviously we don't have enough money to be able to do pavement rehabilitations everywhere. So we then prioritise it based on where the best cost benefit equation is for the community.
Thank you. Who was first? Councillor McCain.
I was just going to water if we're going. Are we on track to comply with Mana Arrowwise request that we must do certain things by certain dates? Is that under?
With one of the projects we are, Lake Ohau. Couple of them we're still waiting on some clarifications to the rules, and the corridor ones I'm not sure where they're at. I know they've started some work on them. I suspect it's unlikely to be completed by the end of this month.
Yeah, just clarify, Corridor ones being 4 schemes run by Corridor Water Limited, a community company that's looking after those 4 schemes. Thank you. Mr. Rendo.
Yeah, just some further detail for you on the Corridor Water Management Limited Supplies. they're currently working with a supplier who's undertaken some design on an option for water treatment processes at each of those 4 sites. I've had a look over the concept designs with members from Corridale Management Limited last week. They'll be presenting some further revisions and some updated pricing. Early indications are that the amount that we've set aside for those projects may not be sufficient. So council will probably have to consider that in the new year as to whether we provide additional funds or go back and try to rework the design to meet the budget.
Thank you. Just in response to your question to Councillor McCone, the Tomato ROI has indicated that they're being a little more relaxed on the timeframes, and I'm not sure whether that's been communicated through to officers, but that was certainly the intention, was that they would get that message out there. Hopefully they have, but Mr. Farnley, have you received that?
So other than seeing the talk by the Chief Executive of Tomato ROI, we've had nothing official on this. So we do need to do something formally on this to agree where we're at with their deadline of the end of this calendar year. So that is in progress at the moment, particularly around the schemes that you asked us to relook at in terms of acceptable solutions.
That's happy. I'm pretty sure that we would be reasonably happy to postpone implementation until they did get those rules out. And yeah, that's the challenge. So perhaps we need to contact the CEO or perhaps their local government liaison they have recently employed. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back to page 36 and at the bottom of the page, under risks and opportunities, it talks about a report coming to council on 26th of November to determine whether Beach Road North would be reinstated. I appreciate the fact that the report was probably written prior to that meeting, but just to clarify, Mr. Rendell, did that meeting decide that we're going to consultation with the community before we make a decision as to what the future of that road is?
Yes, absolutely, it did, Councillor Thompson. Quite the leading question there. Yeah, that report was presented and has been a subject of some public opinion thus far, which is good. The conversation's already been generated. It's great to see that our infrastructure is highly valued by the community. Yeah, within the report itself, I outlined essentially the forecast costs. That'll also be further detailed within the consultation document when it comes out. And then it's, I suppose, up for the community to determine whether it wants to invest that much money in retaining the asset or it feels as that expenditure would be best placed somewhere else.
Thank you. I hope for Mr. Pacey to come here and not have a question, so I've got a question for him. In the monitoring maintenance contract performance, it talks about the median response and resolution of urgent requests. Is that the standard we're using as the median as opposed to an overall percentage? How's that look?
So through the maintenance contract, we require it as an absolute rather than a median. We did just express the median here just to show that they're working as we expected.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be, understanding what the percentage is, I guess, and you know, how many are completed within that time, and what is the measure that we do use, just so we can see how well they are doing overall.
Yeah, so that's reported through the annual report. It's safe to say they're well within the timeframes that we've required.
Yeah, no, thank you, and I just acknowledge that they've had some big jobs, big call outs recently, and they've responded very well. So yeah, very happy with how that's gone, and also from your team around communications and support for people affected by water outages and so on. So thank you for that.
Yep, thank you.
Right, any other questions? Councillor McCone.
So just on the event centre, can we just have a run just a bit of feedback on what's going on there and how fundraising is going and our external costs and incomes go, please?
Yeah, in terms of site works, the contractors are on schedule. Essentially, they're over halfway through their site excavations and backfilling with hard material. They expect to start doing some concrete foundation work in the next couple of weeks. So everything's certainly on track there. As far as fundraising, yeah, there's still some fundraising to go. I'm expecting an updated report from the fundraising trust in time for the project board meeting, which is this coming Friday. But essentially, I believe we've still got approximately $4 million to raise for the full contract price. We do still have our contingency. At this stage, we look like the earthworks excavation is going well. And so we certainly don't expect to use anywhere near the contingency we have in place.
Thank you. Anything else from the assets update? No, thank you very much. Appreciate you all coming, and note clear that you got away without a question. So thank you very much. Next, we've got Finance and Corporate Development Group updates, and Mr. Hope, into you.
Yes, I'll just cover off the first three sections of the report and then pass over to the community development team. As everyone else has noted, just take it as read, probably two quick updates. We are still to receive a management report from Audit New Zealand in relation to the annual report audit. So there's no information there, which is a little disappointing. And then the other in the rates area, we have been monitoring the level of instalment being charged as a early indicator that of any, I suppose, wider financial issues in the community. And just happy to, well, yeah, I suppose happy is the right word. That with the we're not seeing any growth in the level of penalties being charged. So I think that's, but the team is working very closely with people to make sure that there are arrangements in place where people require them, and we're taking appropriate collection action, which so far this year has mostly focused on contacting mortgage holders and requesting them to pay any outstanding arrears as we are allowed to. So other than that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this financial side of things? Councillor Ryan, thank you.
Thank you. Just noting in the information, I guess, about the IBIS system and the managers having read-only access to monitor budgets, enabling more active management and reforecasting of the budgets throughout the year. Is that the reports that it will generate for reporting to council, is it going to change the information that we see, or is the governance team going to be able to have more oversight as well on a more regular basis?
Yeah, certainly the intent is to also give the governance team access to various aspects of the module, obviously not the operational side of it, but certainly the monitoring side of it. So yes, there is information that it will be sort of available pretty much on a daily basis, and then we'll work on setting up the process to be able to answer sort of any queries that arise, probably outside of the formal reporting process that occurs through the Performance Audit and Risk Committee.
Councillor McCain.
Yeah, just depending on the outcome and what it does to our assets, can we object to the valuations that are coming forward? Like, so I see we're up for the building next year. Can we object to those valuations at some stage to stop these anomalies which throw our budgets out?
It's not quite like the sort of the quotable value process where there's sort of a formal objection process. Officers work very closely with the valuers to make sure that we are comfortable with both the assumptions they are using and the data we are supplying. But in the end, it is to meet the financial reporting requirements, it does need to be an independent valuation. So we work more with them to understand what the approach they're taking, making sure that the underlying information is accurate, and then a good understanding of the valuation process. So we have an influence, but we certainly can't object to the end result.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, couple of questions. The first one, on the very first page of the report, this is the annual report on page 42 of our agenda. we've got an $80 million deficit due to increased costs and lower revenue. The lower revenue is, it's not revenue we've missed, it's just revenue we haven't got yet, but we wish we had put in the accounts because of the rules previously. But there is a sentence there that says there were also higher depreciation and interest costs. And that additionally, that goes on to the next paragraph, refers to the significant $105 million increase in Three Waters. The annual roading revaluation was $2 million up, and an increase on 97 the previous year. What is the total quantum of additional rates money needed to meet in the forecast budget, the total quantum of rates required to meet these higher depreciation costs that are identified in this report?
Yeah, I would need to come back to you to that because it depends on the movement of specific assets and previous council decisions about the level of depreciation that would be funded for those assets. So, you know, and as you know, not all assets, even though we recognise the depreciation, we do not, according to the council policy, fund all of it. So we don't necessarily fund all of that increase. So I'd need to come back to you on that one.
I just flagged that it does seem to me that a BAU approach to depreciation is becoming increasingly untenable. But beyond that, if you're going to come back to us, then let's have that conversation at that time. My other question relates to the item on page 44. The Oamaru community safety cameras have reached the end of their life. Well, I just thought we only installed those about 10 years ago. I mean, I'm quite surprised to hear that they're finished already, and also that where's the money to replace them coming from? Do we actually have the actual cash in an actual account somewhere?
Sorry, I'll defer that to the community development team when we get to that section of the report.
Okay, so we're just on the earlier part of that report at the moment. Yeah, just make comment on the annual report and reference to the letter of representation that I was required to sign. I just want to be very clear that I had concerns about it, and after I was able to get some legal advice, I was very happy to sign that letter. So it was unfortunate that I think there were some learnings for a number of us along the way on that particular issue, but also that the letter of representation is a legal document. It is something that we're basically making a legal declaration on. So it is appropriate to take that seriously, and we did get there in the end, and thank the team for all the work that went into getting the annual report completed and audited, and to the point where we were able to get it to us. Wish I could say same about the long-term plan consultation document, which audit may not have to us before Christmas as planned. So see how we go on that one. Well, it's Council Hopkins. It may be their problem, but it makes it our problem, unfortunately. Okay, if there's nothing else on the finances, we'll go to community development and page there, and just welcome to the chamber, Jason Everett and Helen Elgar, but also for the first time, Ellie McIntyre. Welcome along, and welcome to part of the team. So who's going to kick off?
Read them. Sorry, apologies. It's been so long. I'm happy to take the report as read and take any questions.
Thank you very much, Helen. Right. Questions, Councillor Hopkins, you had the one about the CCTV. So Jason, do you want to respond to that?
So through the chair, the cameras, you're quite right, have been in place for about 10, 12 years as now. The cameras have been depreciating as council assets since that day, and were probably fully depreciated about 5 years ago. So the funding is there. Like all technology, it has a lifespan. The most important piece of equipment is the actual recording equipment, which is at the police station. That equipment is, unfortunately, has gone past its end of life, has been replaced with new equipment, which has the ability to store more information. So If you think of the older technology that was put in 10 years ago, the cameras information being sent was only probably small amounts. The new cameras being high definition, there'll be larger amounts. So the new system has the ability to record more information. So we're going through a stage now of working with the CCTV team to work out which cameras need replacing on first come, first served basis.
Thank you. Does that mean that for the new cameras that we won't depreciate them quite as quickly, that we'll lower that depreciation cost and have it over a longer period of time?
Good question. I mean, technology moves on quite quickly. The new system, as best we can, is future-proofed. And the new base system, as I was talking about in the police station, is looking at the expansion into Waihemo, for example, so the ability to also store the information from that system as well. The period for depreciating those cameras, I personally don't know that and would have to take advice from the accounts team for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ryan and then Councillor McCain.
Thank you. I just really wanted to acknowledge the team on the progress for the crisis support service that's coming up. Are there any more details that you can give us about how this, I guess, will work on a practical level? And also, do we have sustainable funding to ensure that that's something that can continue?
The answer to the funding first is yes, we do have sustainable funding. In terms of how it's going to work, Health New Zealand are talking to some local providers and coming up with that model with our local providers. So it will involve FTE. Other than that, I can't comment at this stage, but we are expecting the service to be stood up in February. So we will have more information next year.
Thank you. Councillor McCain.
Just on the safety camera, you say they've reached the end of their life. But is that their shelf life or their book life as opposed to the operational life? And are they still going well? So do we need to replace them as much as we need to replace them as such?
So the cameras are still working themselves, but with our environment that we have with salt, etc., they need more and more maintenance every week, every year, every month. The cameras also, with the technologies that's been used 10 years ago, has changed so much when the request from the police with regards to the quality of images that can be obtained now is much better. But that's why we're going through a stage approach of replacing the cameras, first of all, that really do need replacing. And so the first cameras to be replaced, one will be one type of camera, another will be another camera. So it can be evaluated which is the best camera to be used in the best situations in our own environments here. So yes, the cameras are still working, but some do need replacing now. Not all of them need replacing now.
And the funding is expected to come from where?
So all the cameras are fully depreciated, so the money will be coming from the depreciation of those current assets, the current cameras and equipment.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much for your work that you're doing and so many different spheres of both the council and community. So it's much appreciated. Next, we have the communications updates, and we'll welcome John Pelthorpe to respond to any questions.
Good morning, councillors. Quite happy to take this report as read and take any questions on this one.
Okay, councillors, any questions for comms? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, John, I have two questions. Perhaps the simplest one first. There's a reference on page 47 relating to the engagement and education team, planning for the Oamaru North Master Plan. Now, I was under the impression that in one of our discussions recently, when we've been asked to return some funding to the Crown for local water done well from the better off funding that the previous government had provided to councils around the country, that the funding set aside for the Oamaru North Master Plan was one of the dollar amounts that we said could be returned. And there was some discussion as to whether Oamaru North actually needed a master plan. And my recollection is we said, we came to the conclusion it didn't. So I'm just wondering, have I got that wrong? Or on what basis are we persisting with the Oamaru North master plan?
Thank you, councillor. That might be one to talk to the economic development team about in the next section of this. We've had a preliminary discussion with them about the Oamaru master plan in the last month or so, but I believe like the actual process around that might be one that's best headed for the teams that behind me.
Well, my other question, I suppose, I noticed there's now appears to be a national story about the Waitaki story, and the level of vitriol and misinformation relating to this on social media is deeply disturbing. And I got bailed up yesterday and browbeaten about all manner of things predicated on false assertions about how much the logo would cost and all the other conversations that have been going on in public. Are you guys satisfied that you've responded? I'm not critical of your response, but are you satisfied that you've responded clearly and effectively, or is there any evidence that the community has a better understanding of where the money came from and how it was actually spent on a range of things rather than just one contentious element?
We have not finished responding on this one, and we are working on delivering some information around the Waitaki story as in the document that I believe you've all read, which was the other part of this program. We are receiving some media inquiries at the minute about this. We are responding to them as appropriately as we can with the information we have. Our big emphasis has been correcting some of that misinformation that has unfortunately been able to get out there at this point, and emphasising that any changes that will be made are not going to be paid for by council, but by the designer. And I believe all of the councillors sat around here have read the Waitaki story, the thorough engagement document, which talked to many local people and developed a very solid story. And we're quite excited to share that with the community in the very near future. Maybe it's literally being worked on as we speak. And we will continue to respond to media inquiries to set the record straight. However, I would caution that some people will now believe what they believe, and changing that mindset may be a bit tricky, but I think we have to continue with a lot of the good work that did take place, and hopefully we'll have a new logo for the community in the next few weeks.
Supplementary then, and that when you say hopefully we'll have a new logo.
So I think if you talk about the future logo and so on, it's probably best left for the economic development update next.
Right. Okay. Just from your experience in communications and so on, would you accept that the responsibility to do a thorough and diligent copyright check sat with the company providing material? It was their responsibility to do that. And is it fair to suggest that they may have dropped the ball to an extent?
I think that might be a question for Mel Jones in economic development rather than myself. I think that this has been a bit of it's been a choppy week or so. And there are probably things that we will be able to look back on and say we could have done better. However, at this point, we are where we are responding, like we are midstream. Like I'm not planning on getting off the horse.
I think, we will get into this more with the ED team, but there's been a real hammering that there's a logo and it costs $400,000 and there's obviously potentially breaches of copyright. The story is a heck of a lot more than just a logo, and it's the cost was less than a quarter of what was stated. And I think they did a very good job overall of the overall story and the overall identity. Just need to get the logo sorted out, obviously, and we'll hear more on that very soon. But just a challenge for the comms team to push back against some of that stuff as quickly and as detailed as could happen at the time. But thank you for the work that you and Sonia and their team did, John. It is appreciated. Councillor McCone.
It's more of a comment than anything. I'd just like to congratulate the comms team for being upfront and putting it out there. And if you keep telling it as is, you'll eventually beat those detractors down. And that's the wrong wording, but you just keep telling the truth, and that's all you got to do. And I think I congratulate you for being upfront and doing it. So well done.
Thank you, councillor. We are aware that our social media often has a certain demographic of responders who are not representative of everyone who reads our content. And I believe some of our work late last week drew out some of our wider community who also find some of the comments beneath our Facebook posts to be less than reflective of the wider community.
Thank you, councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I'm just looking at, I guess, the section looking ahead for the next 3 months and transformation communications for stages 3 and 4. Do you have any plans, or like do you anticipate that there'll be any different, like that these stages will differ from previous stages to help the community better understand what transformation is all about?
I believe stages 3 and 4 are a lot more of the public facing parts of transformation. We are talking about our infrastructure teams, customer services, so we are going to have to be talking more about what changes are happening. Also, with the stand up of stages 1 and 2, we do need to have a chat internally about information being passed to comms at an appropriate time so we can talk to the community, as I'm aware that this may have caused a few little rumbles in the last month or so as things are getting started.
Any other questions? Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
I can't let the opportunity go by, Mr. Chair. I'd like to congratulate the team, but also I would like to congratulate you, John, on being brave enough to wear those shoes.
Thank you, councillor. I was inspired by your wonderful vocal performance at Beatrice.
Not sure what message that sends. Anyway, no, thank you very much. Thank you for phoning up, John, and appreciate the very varied work that you do and the diligence you put into it, and along with the other members of the team who also came up with those very inspired new logos that were featured last week. So very tongue in cheek, but I think there's definitely some people who appreciated those. Thank you very much. Okay, next we've got the economic development team, and welcome to the chamber, Mel, Cindy, and Rebecca.
Shall we take the paper as read and open for questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Hopkins.
Look, I'm sorry, I do have a number. On the first page of the report, that's page 52 of our agenda, there's a reference to a proposal to have a virtual tour around heritage buildings in the CBD via QR codes and so on. Now, there are people actively trying to generate, re-establish the walking tours at the moment. And I'm just wondering, I'm a bit concerned that this might be a situation where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing and or is not engaging with the people currently involved in the process. And I would seek some reassurance that you are at least willing to engage with the people who are trying to resurrect tours to see if they can make a contribution even to the content in relation to the QR codes and so forth. And secondly, on the same page, the Thames Street public space activation potentially is exciting. And if we think about some of the conversations we've just had, it also has the potential to be quite contentious and controversial. Will we see the design? You're talking about planning to include seating, art, activities, etc., and how the learnings will inform streetscape activation elsewhere. So will we see the design for that before the actual project experiment is undertaken? I've got some other questions, but I'll leave it. I'll just ask those two at the moment.
I'll talk to the first one and Cindy can talk to the Thames Street one. So on the first one around the Oamaru Tales activation, just a reminder, this is a community-led project. So there's a very small project team working on it, including the mayor. They are piloting a new approach to storytelling and engaging with visitors. The pilot is simply at this stage looking at 2 buildings and a QR code to activate those buildings. We will be taking the learnings and then that will inform what we do at a broader visitor engagement level. So at this stage, there hasn't been a lot of interactions, I understand, with other storytelling or tour activation, because this is a very specific initiative that the community group have come up with. So it's very small scale. We'll be piloting it. We've already recorded, I believe, a couple of the stories, and they'll put them onto an app, and they'll just be doing some quick work with visitors to assess what the impact is, and then there'll be some learnings that can inform other visitor activation.
I think just as a member of that group putting that together, the number of people who do walking tours is very, very small out of our total visitor numbers. And, I think that the ones who might do this virtual tour essentially is going to be relatively small. But, I think there's a big enough market there that we need to promote both things, and people can do it in their spare time, anytime, but also if they want more personalised tour, then that's absolutely where those walking tours can be very helpful.
Yeah, I think it's good to see some new technology being used and new ways to engage with our visitors.
Thank you. Mel, any?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Cindy. Yeah.
Thank you. With the Thames Street project, yes, you will see design, and we do have an afternoon discussion with the ward councillors to talk through that. Currently, we are working with the businesses that will be facing the activated area in that design phase. So yes, we will keep you informed throughout the whole process.
So there is a workshop this afternoon on that one. Councillor McCain.
I see we're getting invaded by film crews again, which is great, awesome. Are the local businesses down there quite happy that their streets getting shut down in the peak of their tourist season?
Yeah, this is a very exciting opportunity, and it's been quite tricky from a PR perspective because I've signed an NDA, so we can't talk too much about it, but the Civic Trust have been actively engaging with all of their tenants, and there's agreements in place with all of them around recompense for any lost business, etc. So there's a lot of engagement going on. We've just put a public notice out last week so that everybody is aware that the streets will be closed. But I think it really is a fantastic opportunity for Oamaru to put Oamaru on the map. But also there's going to be 400 odd people, extras coming into town. So should be good for business broadly for the CBD. Certainly accommodation is fully booked, as I understand.
So one side settled, that's pretty good. But the other side, I'm just concerned that these guys are here for 365 days a year and pay rates, and I hope that it doesn't affect them.
Yeah,
I'm not sure the extent of it. I did talk to one business owner in Harbour Street who's going to have to be closed, but is being compensated for being closed. And it's the Civic Trust does have clauses in their lease agreements around businesses closing for filming, and it's great when they get the compensation to allow them to make sure they don't miss out on their revenue they don't normally have. Sorry, Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, just picking up, I did flag this question earlier with John, and he suggested I raise it with you. Also on page 52, work is underway to develop a master plan for Oamaru North. My question is, I thought we had actually suggested that wasn't necessary. So if some response to that can be provided, I'd be grateful. Yeah, I'll just ask one question at a time, but I do flag that I have a couple of others, one relating to the Waitaki story and the other to the OWCT investigation.
The Oamaru North Master Plan was a discussion a few months ago. My understanding was there's been a lot of change up in that area, and there's some key challenges up there, not least connectivity across the state highway. So the master plan is very much looking at how do we, what are the opportunities and constraints there today that we can actually be putting some plans in place for the longer term, so they can be put into the long-term LTP. There is money to do the master plan, but the activation piece would need to be picked up in the LTP. But there's been with the event centre, there's a number of new businesses and opportunities have opened up there in the last few years, even since I've been here. And there are ramifications, obviously, for all that work, not least for all the extra people going in there.
So to clarify, do you agree to reduce the funds to on Route North, but kept some in there to develop the master plan? But there weren't funds kept in there for any implementation.
So I was sort of a wee bit right. Okay.
So the and you know, I think it's important to note this has been on the books on the LTPs for a long time, and I'm keen to see something happen in that particular part of our district. Next question.
Just with regard, we heard that there might be a new logo of the Waitaki story, a contentious bit. There might be a new logo in a few weeks. I think that the focus groups, some of which I attended and other people did as well, there were at least two of them. This new design to the designs, will there be, I mean, are we just going to say, here's the new one, that's it? Or how, what, given the contention and debate and vehemence with which people have responded today, how are we going to deal with the relaunch, given the potential embarrassment of actually having to do so?
I think, obviously this is top of mind at the moment, but it's not a subject in here as the update report. I think there's, given things that happened on Friday last week and we're on Tuesday now, I think we've got some thinking to do. There's discussions happening with the designers. Take a breather on this and reflect on what we need to do and how quickly we can do that. We need to make sure we get it right, given the some of the reaction out there. Is my suggestion that we don't try and, well, we can't make decisions here, but try and make decisions on that in this forum.
I'm very comfortable with that answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Palmley. If I may ask my last question, well, I've got two questions. The one relating to the Oamaru Heritage Historic Precinct Economic Impact Study, two-stage report. Part one will assess the economic impact on the district of the precinct. Part two, explore commercial considerations. The work is being developed in collaboration with OWCT staff and nominated leads for the project. And my understanding is we're kicking in 45,000 for this. And it's a study of the precinct and the current management thereof. And it's deeply disturbing that we're paying and they appear to be critically involved in actually determining the terms of reference and the content.
So the Civic Trust nominated Natalie Evans and Karen Lewis to act on their behalf. So they put an initial brief together. We've then discussed that as a cohort and refined it and given that to Benji Patterson, who's doing the work. There are two elements that they're looking at. One is the economic impact. The second then looks at the commercialisation. We're not looking at staffing for the Civic Trust. That's not in scope. The work is almost complete, and we're looking to have a discussion with Natalie and Carolyn next week, and then there'll be a further discussion to happen after that. But there's some very good data being pulled together, which I think is really going to help us understand how we can best unlock the potential or understand the potential in that area and look to unlock new growth in the future.
I just want to add that this isn't an investigation into the Civic Trust. It's actually looking at what the economic benefit of them is. It's important that they identify any aspect of what they do and how they do it as to what does add value. Things around the protection of the buildings, the adaptive reuse of buildings, the benefit to the economy, both for those uses of the buildings, the fact that they are being preserved. Those are all things that come together, and I would hardly expect that study would be able to happen without the contributions that the Trust itself was able to make towards that study.
Okay, the concern I have is that if it's an economic impact study, what I will be looking for in it, along with the information about the economic impact of what is currently in place and how things are currently operated, I would be hoping the economic impact study might say, now look, if you wanted to improve or increase the economic impact, here are some things you may wish to consider doing. And to my mind, that's actually as essential a part of it as the study of what is the status quo. And I just, the way the text was read, where it says that the Civic Trust staff the work is being developed in collaboration with OWCT staff. It just concerns me that may restrict or inhibit the scope of the economic impact study.
Sounds more like a statement rather than a question on an update report. But it was something that the economic impact study was something that the trust had asked us for support on, and are interested in results with a view to how do they move forward. So that's where the commercialisation bit comes in. I think we've got to remember we're part of the trust. We nominate people to sit on there, so we're part of that partnership. And in terms of our transforming council, we want to partner and enable our community. So it's inconceivable that we'd want to progress something like that without engaging the trust in that, and it'd be very difficult to do without engaging them, given the information. But it is all with a view to understanding the current position and then understanding how that they can make the most of what they have there and operate on a financially sustainable footing as well going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Palmley. I'll go to Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I'm just interested in the land use diversification initiative. Are there any sort of initial insights that have been gained from the trials that you can share so far? And do you know what is the expected timeline for assessing the viability of the new crops? I guess there's still some to be planted and to be assessed, but is there an idea of a timeline?
Yes, so most of the crops will be available to harvest in year 2 to 4 of the growing cycles, but we can test them at the end of this growing cycle to see what the phytochemical properties are, and that'll give us a steer on what crops we should expand potentially if we're able to do so. Yeah.
Any sort of other insights so far on the project that you can share?
I think it's been really challenging for the farmers who've maybe just been involved in pastoral farming to move into cropping. So just picking up that extra skill set, making sure they've got the right equipment. But they've all been able to pull together and help each other out. So it's really a truly sort of collaborative project. And seedlings are arriving every week now up until mid-December.
Thank you. And excuse me, Councillor McCone.
I have a question concerning the Geopark and the Vanished World Centre. So I see you're thinking of planning and fundraising for refurbishment. I don't have this wrong, but I asked why. How much does it cost and what's proposed? Do we own the building, and are we not better off to put signage up and everything else to tell people where we are and what we are before we actually do up a building?
What I would say is that they did get initial grants to do a refurb of Vanished World, which is privately owned building that is rented out to the trust. They didn't get the grant from the lotteries, and that's meant they've had to reconsider how they're going to enhance and refurb that property. It is very tired. It does exceptionally well given how tired the asset is. They get a good number of visitors every year, and they get a good turnover. So there's a real opportunity to improve it, and that's what they're looking to do now.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple of negatives that I want to bring to your attention. One is your very successful shopfront exercise here in Oamaru has actually cost Waihemo a ratepayer who is shifting their business to Oamaru on the basis of that success. So well done. But my question is around the only red flag on this report is around business innovation and growth. And I would be concerned that whilst the focus is on things that are important, I keep coming back to the fact that in percentages of production in this community, there are some major contributors who aren't getting our focus at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. That is a very accurate summary. Rebecca was working 30 hours a week, is no longer working 30, she's on 15, so we don't have the bandwidth. I am actively engaging with Dunedin City Council at the moment, looking at some resourcing there because we still have some money set aside in the Better Off funds that we can deploy against business innovation and growth. So there is a live conversation on the go at the moment, looking at how we might tap into resources there and support our goals, because it's really an important area, as you say, and it's, yeah, and I'm concerned that it is a red flag too, but it's the reality of where we are at the moment.
Can I just add to that? I mean, as a general picture across economic development, we don't have all the resources internally to deliver the economic development strategy ambitions, and the team, I think, do very well with what is a stretched resource over what is a really ambitious program.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, team, and appreciate the work that you're doing, and all the best for getting that new logo up and running. All right. Excuse me. We've got health and safety update now, and so this is the time we were supposed to be finishing, but this is pretty important. And I've actually just asked officers whether to consider, with the activity update order of things, whether they actually move health and safety to the start. It would be, I think, a good signal to send that this is important. It's something that we do have legal responsibilities for. It's something that we should be not continually running out of time for. So just ask that be considered. So welcome.
So noted, Mr. Chair.
So welcome, Bill and Peter. And I think, I'm not sure if it's the first time you've been in the chamber, Peter, but well, appearing in chamber. So.
Technically, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Right. Who's kicking off?
Kia ora koutou. Paper ticket as read, and happy to answer any questions that you might have about health and safety.
Thank you. Councillors, Councillor Hopkins.
Look, two very quickly, and they are in the report, so you may be able to discuss them a little bit more fully. There are two incidents identified in September: abuse of staff member helping library team and subjected to abuse, bracket over familiar, inappropriate discussion, triggered reminder to make other staff aware when they are assisting other teams, behavioural and other hazards and their mitigations. And also abuse levelled at regulatory officers and police seizing a dog, debrief with team and health and safety advisor yielded good learnings, including to discuss what if scenarios with police beforehand and show the value of having body worn video cameras. Is there anything additional you can say about either or both of those incidents, please?
They were raised at our last meeting, at which time we agreed that I'd put these supplementary notes. So some of those notes are from the previous quarter. Okay, the only one I'd point out for this meeting is the October one, with the abuse of the regulatory manager, menacing dogs, supposed to be on muzzle in town, and they weren't. He approached the people concerned. He dealt with it rightly. Part of dealing with it rightly was that he withdrew to de-escalate the situation. He issued a fine. They paid it that day. They knew they were in the wrong.
Look, I'm sorry, Bill. I hadn't realised that those two September issues were matters we had discussed verbally last time round. But the written description of the incident with the staff member helping the library team and making over familiar and inappropriate discussion, that all seems to me to be new information. Is there anything? Is that one staff member and another interacting inappropriately, or what is that all about?
through the chair, councillor Hopkins, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that one. That was an event where someone from one section of council was free to give help to the library staff. It was a patron of the library staff who made inappropriate comments. So what we did in the follow-up is we've strengthened the procedures around using other staff. It's just, if there's people like that, they need to be made aware of the appropriate way to respond. Okay.
I think I understand. What you're saying is a member of the public said something rude in the library to a person who wasn't a librarian but was there to help the library. And so the people who are not in the library but occasionally go to help the library are now getting a bit more training in terms of how to deal with rude people who happen to be in the library at the time.
That's a very good summary.
Well, actually, it was probably 3 times as long as it needed to be, but it was accurate. Mr. Cook and then Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I think we have talked about the regulatory officers and the police seizing the dog. That was the event in Palmerston where the dog owner threatened to kill and then left the premises and resulted in a police pursuit and a vet out to not euthanize but to tranquilise the dog so it could be handled.
Thank you, Roger.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, these reports are important and fascinating, but rather a lot of them to me are after the fact. We're reporting things that have happened. Do we have a policy in ensuring that our staff who are working in the field get home safe and sound at the end of the workday?
Through the chair, there are risk assessments made when they are travelling up country. There's a communication protocol, which is different for different teams. For those who are working outside of hours regularly, like animal management, we actually have a welfare check system in place through TrackMe, where our staff are monitored until they get home. We have passed on to the managers regularly the fact that if their people are going to be outside of work hours, that there is some established protocol to check in, and that means that the staff here that are the buddy cannot sort of sign out for the day until that person's home.
No, thank you for that. I am aware of a specific situation I'd like to draw to your attention, but this probably isn't the appropriate forum. But we do have a duty to ensure that staff who are working in the field, possibly exposed to hazard chemicals, etc., are checked upon.
Through the chair, Councillor Thompson, I'd be appreciative of having that conversation later today. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Lord Peter? No, thank you very much. And I think we're on the last one, Grants and Awards Subcommittee, and I'm just wondering whether Mrs. Bailey wants to make any comments, or could hand to the chair of the Grants and Awards Subcommittee.
I think I will take it as read. It's a great report to see the update coming through. There's never enough money in the grants for the applications that come in, but yeah, real appreciation to the team that worked through these grants each meeting.
Thank you. And Councillor Ryan, do you have any comment on what we've got here today?
No, I guess just to continue what Mrs. Bailey said, yeah, they've continued to be incredibly oversubscribed, which makes our job assessing them that much more difficult, because we'd love to help everyone out, but it just isn't always possible. This was our first round of the Heritage Fund with the new criteria, and yeah, I guess I just highlight as well the interest in the waste minimisation fund, another oversubscribed fund, but I think just indicates the interest that and passion that our community has for waste minimisation now, which is great.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions, comments? It's pretty straightforward, and and just acknowledge pretty much every line that's in that report is a good news story. Sometimes not so much nice news, but it's people helping other people when they most need it, and others are just organisations getting on and doing good things for the community. So acknowledge all of that. So thank you very much. And there's nothing else. That brings us to the end of this activity update. So thank you very much again to all staff who have contributed to the report, and we appreciate it. And there's a lot more to do in the few weeks before Christmas. So wish everyone all the best for that.